This is your Daily Detroit for Monday, March 30th, 2020. I'm Jer Stays. Today, the auto show for this year has been canceled, as the TCF Center will be turned into a field hospital. For more, Autoblog Editor-in-Chief Greg Migliori joins my colleague, Sven Gustafson. Plus, locally, the peak of coronavirus cases is coming in the next weeks, says a Michigan health official. A Detroit state representative has died, and the suspected cause is COVID-19. And finally, there is some calm in the storm, and you can find it with Lullabies from Detroit. We talk to the founders about this magical little evening stream from the Motor City each night. Let's get into it after we quickly thank our members on Patreon. We couldn't do this without your support, so thanks to Alan, Tony, Jennifer, Ann, Sean, Dave, Kevin, Roger, Katie, and many more. You're a few of the folks who make this go, and thank you so much. If you can, if it's something you can swing, join them at patreon.com/dailydetroit. It helps keep the pod free for everyone. Let's get started. The latest statewide numbers as of this recording show that there are 6,498 confirmed coronavirus cases in the state and 184 deaths. Far and away the most impacted locale is the city of Detroit, with just over 1,800 cases and 52 deaths. Oakland County is approaching 1,400 cases, and the number of deaths has doubled overnight to 59. Field hospitals are being considered for the Suburban Collections Showplace in Novi, Lawrence Technological University in Southfield, and Oakland University in Rochester Hills. And cases in the rest of the region continue to mount. The coronavirus is suspected to have claimed another community leader, State Representative Isaac Robinson. He died Sunday morning at the age of 44. The Detroit Democrat served the 4th House District that covers some of the Near East Side, the entire city of Hamtramck, the North End where this show is being recorded, and just west of the Lodge. He was known as a vocal advocate for his causes and would work with former competitors for a common cause, something that you do not see enough of nowadays. Multiple reports say that Isaacson, after suffering symptoms for a few days, had gone to the hospital at 6 a.m. Sunday and was dead by 11 that morning. Although I never knew the representative myself, I have many people who are close to me that did. It's definitely a loss for the community. Governor Gretchen Whitmer made a couple of announcements and communications today. One, that some nonviolent prisoners may be released. The virus is spreading quickly through the prison systems in Michigan, with at least 85 cases between employees and prisoners already. No specific numbers have been given on the scope of the possible release. Additionally, the state government is enacting a hiring freeze and shutting down all non-discretionary spending until further notice. The move is to try and blunt the impact of what is almost guaranteed to be a major hole in the state budget this year. It's expected that conditions in Michigan will get much worse before they get better. A top health official with the state said that current models suggest we are likely several weeks away from a peak in the number of cases in the state. In economic news, a few things to share from major local employers as the economy continues to slow, especially anything that involves being in person. Lazy Boy Furniture, based in Monroe, Michigan, will furlough 6,800 employees, or about 70% of its workforce. All of its stores are either temporarily closed or will be closed soon, and once orders are processed, their distribution centers will close as well. Nationally, department stores are being hard hit. Macy's is going to furlough nearly 130,000 people. The online business will remain open. Macy's will continue to pay for health care coverage through the month of May. Considering the overall problems in the physical retail industry even before this, I must say it's very possible a number of those stores will not reopen. And Wednesday, workers at Detroit's 3 casinos will get their last paycheck until after the pandemic clears. Their benefits with copay would run through the end of June. All casinos statewide have been closed since the stay-at-home order and will be closed until at least April 13th. Casinos employed nearly 20,000 workers in Michigan before the pandemic. General Motors says production is on track to start this week at a factory in Warren to make Level 1 surgical masks, with the aim to ramp up to 50,000 masks a day. The company says they're donating the work at cost. Over the weekend, it was announced that the TCF Center, formerly known as Cobo Hall, is going to be turned into a 2-level, 900-bed hospital as the city and region braces for even more coronavirus hospitalizations. Construction is expected to take 2 weeks and is already underway. That was the final straw for the North American International Auto Show to be canceled for this year. To talk about that and the impact, Sven Gustafson chatted with Autoblog editor Greg Migliori.
Joining us to talk all about the Detroit Auto Show cancellation is Greg Migliori. He's the editor-in-chief of Autoblog. Greg, good to have you back on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Detroit is obviously just the latest in a growing number of auto shows that have bitten the dust because of coronavirus. We've seen Geneva and New York both canceled. Lots of other festivals, and certainly the racing circuit has also been affected. But Greg, given that this was supposed to be the debut of this new format version of the Detroit Auto Show, remind us kind of like what we're missing here exactly, because this was supposed to be sort of a big deal, right?
This was definitely going to be sort of like the Auto Show 2.0 for Detroit. They were going to, just relaunch their strategy. Traditionally, it's always been sort of the kickoff to the automotive year, first or second week of January, cold and snowy, but lots of, international reveals. Very important auto show. The auto show has always been very significant because of the reveals, because of the press days. It's a really big consumer show, naturally being in Detroit, but there's actually, there's bigger consumer shows as far as just pure attendance and, square footage, the convention halls. But Detroit always held a really special place because that's where all the important reveals really were, especially early in the year. Lots of key executives would be there. It was just a great place to really sort of kick off the new year, if you will, for automakers. We've seen auto shows face, increased stress, all kinds of just pressures from direct consumer events, social media. So this was supposed to be sort of, hey, let's try something new. Do it in June when it's warm out. There could be outside things like test tracks, maybe pair it up with some of the other great things you can do in the summer, like, the Grand Prix, Tigers games, Detroit's revitalizing, restaurant and bar scene. This is all supposed to be part of it. And it gets delayed for another year.
Yeah. How big of a blow do you think it is for the Detroit Auto Show, given that this was supposed to be like a big reboot? And I mean, we haven't actually seen a Detroit Auto Show for more than a year now already. And it's going to be another year now.
When it's all said and done, you're looking at over 2.5 years, basically. You're going to be in January 2019 to potentially June 2021. That's a really long time. Anytime you're like a public-facing consumer event that really is driven by media and awareness and, hype, you never want to take a break. That's not really what you want to be doing. So I think it's a big blow. And I think it comes at a really odd time because automakers and auto shows are really just trying to figure out the best ways to be, to reveal the products and then be platforms for revealing those products. So I think it's rough because if they could have had a really great new idea and new concept in June of this year, that could have reset everything. And then, even if, hey, there's this, the pandemic, all these, crazy things happening in the world, at least they've sort of reset up what their identity is and given, the world an idea of what the, modern Detroit Auto Show could be. As is now, people are just probably are really, it's all in flux, literally for everything, but especially for, what the idea of what the Detroit Auto Show is going to be in modern times.
Yeah. Obviously in this case, the Army Corps of Engineers, forced the cancellation because they're talking about using the TCF Center, the venue, as a staging hospital. But what about the automakers? I mean, do you think they would have lobbied for the cancellation as well? I mean, they've certainly all been cutting way back on spending right now to try to weather this storm economically.
Well, it's tough to speculate, but what I've seen is basically, the Detroit 3 for sure, and really every automaker has canceled almost every event for the last month solid. Mm-hmm. So considering how much work and preparation goes into getting ready for an auto show, I think they would have very strongly been, looking to have a plan B in the works, at least a plan to go virtual for some of these reveals. Because I think at least the Detroit 3, And we've heard, other international automakers were really looking to make a splash in Detroit. There's a little bit of a myth kind of going around that the show was sort of having trouble. The last auto show, the one here in 2019, was still a very strong one. Not as strong as perhaps at its peak, but still pretty strong. And I think the idea was they could sort of relaunch it, still do some of the strong press days, get a lot of splashy reveals, but also have, some of these other consumer activities, social media activities, just, more engagement, interaction that would have, changed the idea of what the show was while also remaining true to some of its core areas. So I think that was the thought, but how do you pull that off without months of planning? Yeah, I think automakers probably, to speculate, I think they're probably relieved. June's coming up quick. Lots of big events have been canceled. Every press trip, every test drive has been canceled for the last few weeks. I think it's the right move, not just as far as planning and for the car world, but, obviously morally, ethically, it seems like we're going to get hit pretty hard here in Southeast Michigan. So, obviously you applaud every effort, that can be made to, help the patients and the sick.
Yeah, the Detroit 3 automakers all definitely signaled that they stood behind the organizers' decision to cancel this year's show. As you mentioned, Greg, auto shows have been kind of reeling in recent years. A lot of automakers are dropping out, not just here in Detroit, but all around the world. They're declining to participate, saving their money and everything. So given that, what do you think, look in your crystal ball, what do you think the coronavirus portends for the future of auto shows going forward? Does this cast them even into more doubt?
Oh, absolutely. I think, just from a logistics standpoint, this time in the history of the world, and even probably for, a year or two out, I don't think it's going to be a great idea to have tens of hundreds of thousands of people in closed places where you're all touching the same surfaces repeatedly. That's what at its core an auto show is you go and you sit in the car, you touch the surfaces, maybe you get a handout, maybe you engage in some digital program, but it all requires touching and getting up close and seeing these things. So I think it requires a drastic rethink. The next big show coming up, after this is probably Paris in the fall, which I can't imagine they're going to really do in any form like it has been in the past. And then you get into the Los Angeles Auto Show. And, we've seen California's pretty hard hit. I think auto shows just in general, the consumer part is going to get kind of wrapped up in with, sporting leagues, just, how could you find these public, health and safety measures to make these areas safe again? But, from just a marketing standpoint, I think automakers probably for years have thought, there might be a better way to do this. And now this is their opportunity to go ahead and figure that out.
So we can probably look forward to more kind of standalone digital reveals and things like that, do you think?
I think that's a quick fix for now. We've already seen some of that. And then the question becomes, are those really that effective? Because, you do a live stream, you get some of the trade press, the core enthusiast press to write about it. But then what? How does that have staying power? How do you continue to get your message out there about, the new car? And I'm a little skeptical that some of these live streams really are the best way to do that. I think they actually probably are an improvement over the most recent edition of auto shows, where it's there's a press conference, then there's another press conference 15 minutes from now, and all the car companies are competing sort of for the same amount of space on the internet. One-offs do allow you a chance to really kind of build your own little event and give you that sort of halo and sheen, if you will, around your product, create your own buzz. So that's great. But I guess I am a little cynical about how that's really going to work long term. Is every single car going to get its own live stream? There's a little bit of there's some logistics that I think need to get worked out and ways you can find that. And that's what happens in a crisis is people start to innovate. They figure some things out. They try some new things, and away we go. So I expect ways we never even considered a couple years ago is how cars are going to be launched. I think we're going to see more cars launched in video games. I think you're going to see more almost subtle guerrilla marketing tactics, simply because, tearing the sheet off a car and then handing out a press release, that's very 1990. I think there's probably more and better ways to reach consumers and fans of some of these hot new cars.
Interesting. Greg Migliori is editor-in-chief of Autoblog. Greg, thanks so much for coming on Daily Detroit.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I note that organizers of the auto show are still hoping to do some sort of event or fundraiser to support charities sometime later this year. Lullabies are often just thought of as songs to help babies and little kids get to sleep. But what if there were lullabies for everybody? It sounds like a good idea to me in these trying times. And that is exactly what Lullabies from Detroit is doing. Every evening at 10 p.m., a musician performs on Facebook Live on their Facebook page from their home. I spoke with the organizers, Michelle Oberholzer, Audra Kubat, and Emily Rose, about this beautiful little corner of the internet. How did this begin? Because it's just kind of like a magical thing in these times. Michelle?
I've been a fan of lullabies and the idea of lullabies for a long time. It's just sort of this hidden part of our culture that is known but not shared. And so it's just an idea that I play with a lot. And I thought that it would be really wonderful and necessary to be sharing lullabies in this moment. And I didn't know how to do it. And fortunately, I reached out to Audra and Emily, and then almost instantly we just formed this idea together of having a nightly lineup, a way to give a platform for artists, especially artists who can't really perform in the traditional way right now. And it's just grown from there.
Emily?
So far, it's been really successful, and we've been getting like a great response. I think people look forward to it every night at 10 p.m. It's like one thing they can rely on to go to that won't be bad news, that will be people who want to reach out. It's one thing you can count on to get every night. I didn't even realize how successful it was gonna be. And in the first week, we already have 500 likes, and we have a lot of people talking about it. So it's great.
I just want to add one more thing. I think that the platform of a lullaby, this is a pretty low production thing, either a cappella or acoustic. And so it really is suited to the time where we're in, where a lot of artists don't have their amps, their mics, their band, collaborating. So it is kind of meant for this type of moment when we don't have all the tools we're used to.
And it really showcases the skills of the artist. Every single one that I've seen, it's been excellent because it's just you and the artist and a guitar or something like that, where it's the quality really shines through, I think. What are a couple of your favorite songs that give the most reaction for people or that they connect with? Have you gotten any feedback?
My favorite lullaby was Stay Awake, the Mary Poppins song. And I actually didn't remember that I loved it until I spoke with my mom before we launched this project. And so that's been my favorite. It's an actual lullaby.
Audra?
For me, I think sharing Somewhere Over the Rainbow was my favorite moment for sharing, because that brought back all the memories from being a child and watching it with my family.
The response I got the best from mine was actually a cover of the Bangles' Eternal Flame.
Mm.
And I know it, but if you think about the lyrics, it's like, close your eyes, give me your hand, watch you while you're sleeping. The lyrics are actually very lullaby-esque. But I played it actually at a funeral a few years ago. And it was really special because this was a very special song for this family. And so that's kind of why it stuck out for me about maybe doing it for the Lullabies for Detroit.
Are you finding that this is helping spread your wings a little bit musically, helping you connect with folks, or is this something that you feel like, is kind of like a natural extension of what you've already done?
For me, it's been interesting because I've never done live Facebook stuff. I'm not a big online sharer regularly. So it's been taking me out of my comfort zone while in my literal comfort zone. It is making me stretch. But the connection part for me is, even just watching all the musicians and being a watcher of all the comments roll in while other people are performing. I think it is connecting us all, even just kind of being an observer of other folks, because we don't always get to go to each other's shows because we're often playing gigs on the same night, or maybe you don't want to go out on your one night off, because so it's been actually an opportunity to hear artists that I haven't gotten to really hear in a long time, or artists I've never heard before.
performing in front of people for me has always been like a way to kind of generate that cycle that happens. I feel like that's where I shine the best. I mean, even in the studio recording, I don't feel like I sound as good or as connected as I am when I'm performing with an audience, and I have that experience. So yeah, it's certainly been challenging and a bit terrifying, but yeah, I think it's been really good practice to do this kind of thing and try to get more comfortable with sharing this way.
So if you want to check this out, make sure to go to the Lullabies from Detroit Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Lullabies from Detroit. I will be sure to put a link in the show notes. They'll be there every night. The lineup for this week includes Monday, Mike Ward; Tuesday, March 31st, Spoo Willoughby; Wednesday, April 1st, Caitlin Drinkard of the Drinkard Sisters. On Thursday, there's Allie Evanson. Friday has Monty Aaron Pride. And Saturday, April 4th, Rocket Man. Go listen, watch, do the thing. You won't regret it. All right, that'll do it for today's edition of Your Daily Detroit. We are here doing our best to keep you connected to everything that is going on out there. Over the weekend, thanks to DetroitOnTheCheap.com for mentioning us. We will put a link in the show notes for podcasts you could check out. Really appreciate it. We're in some great local company. Also, if you have feedback or questions, hit me up, dailydetroit@gmail.com. We're trying our best with the audio, doing everything remotely, making this happen. And thank you to the team for making that happen. It's really been a huge lift from everyone. With that, I'm Jer Stays. Thanks for listening, and let's get through this together. Talk to you tomorrow.